Hello and welcome to this month's edition of the Whisky Investment Podcast. I'm Alwynne Gwilt, a whisky journalist, and this month I'm joined by Mandy Naglich. She is the author of How to Taste and a drinks journalist, and in this episode we're going to be delving into the science behind flavor and taste. It's a super fascinating subject, and if you love whiskey and if you drink it regularly, it's really something you should know more about. Mandy, welcome to the podcast.
It's so great to be here. I'm excited to meet you and talk about some tasting.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we could talk for hours. I have no doubt about that. But for those out there who maybe haven't come across your book or don't know about you, can you chat a little bit about who you are and kind of how you got into this?
Yeah, so I'm an author and drinks journalist, just like you said. Some people might know me better as Drinks with Mandy, which is my Instagram account where I share a lot of sensory science and things about drinks just to make them a little more interesting for people. And this book, How to Taste, is a little bit about the science of tasting as well as how you can use tasting to make your life more colorful, more interesting. And then the end is just a little bit about everything that taste works within our life. So taste in memory, taste in travel, taste in your happiness. So all kinds of things, everything tastes, and I'm really passionate about it. So yeah.
Yeah, the book, I mean, I've been reading it. It is super interesting, delving definitely into the more geeky sciencey side, but also, as you say, how that translates into day-to-day life. How did you kind of get into this space? What was it about taste, flavor that really fascinated you?
So I started my career in the drinks world in beer, and I was getting these certifications called Cicerone. It's like a sommelier, but for beer. I was one of the first 100 Advanced Cicerones in the world, and what you have to do is be able to blind taste 160 different beer styles. And know what they are, know like the ABV, be able to, just from a Dixie cup, be able to identify them. And I realized rather than being interested in beer, I started becoming so interested in how I could sharpen my skills, how I could taste these different things. I started tasting other drinks, other foods, and really trying to improve my palate. And that kind of getting the certification kind of opened my world up to taste and flavor chemistry.
Yeah.
And I really started studying that more than beer, and I kind of have left beer in the dust. Still my first love, but and we all know that it takes beer to make whiskey. So,
absolutely, it does. That's the starting point.
But yeah, I really got interested in that, and I felt like we all need to use it, and there's no like definitive text or like one person who's really the expert on that, and so I wanted to go gather some tasting experts and learn from them.
Amazing. So you interview a number of different experts for the book, delving from coffee to cheese to whiskey to wine, of course.
Olive oil.
Amazing. Something probably people don't think about too much. Olive oil tastings are delightful.
Amazing, yeah.
Was there one category that you almost went more towards or that fascinated you more? Or was it just actually, as you started delving into it, they all had their own fascinating arenas?
I think what was so interesting when I was first writing the book, I didn't realize how we could actually use the same tasting method across any tasting.
Right. Okay.
So I couldn't believe the way you taste coffee is very similar to the way people taste cheese. I went out to the Tillamook labs where they're doing R&D and really professional cheese tasting.
Yeah.
It's not so different to the way that people taste coffee.
Okay.
And I was like, wow, I can actually write one tasting method that will work across anything you want to taste and can actually help you kind of build a system to then build your own personal flavor library. Okay. So I think that was super surprising to me.
Yeah, wow. So it's actually, there's, as you say, the ingredients, the final products are very different, but you can approach them in a similar way.
Right. The method that, we use our senses to approach things and understand flavor is the same across whether a drink, a solid, anything. It's really interesting.
And you said you've not forgotten beer, but you've moved away from it in some senses to kind of focus in on your fascination with flavor in general. There are a lot of very interesting facts in the book, and I recommend anyone out there to go and read it. I keep ticking up more on a list of like, wow, that's so cool. Oh, that's amazing. I didn't know that. I think the one that really caught my eye recently was the ketchup taste that they did in Germany, where they added vanillin to some ketchup.
Right.
So vanillin obviously giving us the vanilla flavor.
Right.
And some people absolutely adored it, and it turned out they had been bottle fed as babies.
They were formula babies, exactly.
And they added that to formula in Germany, and so people didn't even know that this was a flavor they liked, but it was somewhere in the back of our
your animal kind of part of your brain that you're like, this reminds me of my mother's
something.
And it's actually, this didn't make it into the book, but the reason like we love vanilla, it's the most popular ice cream flavor in the world, is because it tastes very similar to breast milk.
Right.
So we love vanilla smells. It makes us feel cozy. It makes us feel safe. And that's just like this memory, this sensory memory that we all have as humans.
Yeah.
We cut that little part that every time you're having vanilla, you're thinking of breast milk. But yeah, I think it's just so interesting. And then, those formula babies, they use exactly that compound vanillin to make it taste like vanilla. So you would never think ketchup and vanilla, but...
There you go.
It has if you have the right background, you'll just love it.
It has a place.
Yeah.
So there are so many interesting facts in the book. What was there one that still, to this day, you know, I guess almost 2 years down the line from writing, it still sticks out for you as one of the most fascinating?
Yeah, I think the more I did the research, I realized that what really makes us human is our senses, taste and smell, is our way to see our environment. So about 20% of our genes, of our human genes, 1,000 different genes, are dedicated just to decoding smells.
Wow.
So when you think about, you know, what separates us from AI or what keeps us, you know, what really makes us human, so much of what we are as a person is dedicated to this sense of smell that we kind of don't think about very often, you know. And when I was getting into taste, I realized it's more and more and more about the nose. And so knowing this and knowing that we have all these genes, all of us are living in different scent worlds, and it's something you can practice and actually get good at. I think people think you're born a taster or not, and that's completely not the case. So that was something I really wanted to like hammer home with the book as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We talk a lot about that in whiskey because a lot of times people think that whiskey blenders are doing everything by their palate and they're tasting all these whiskeys. But actually most whiskey blenders are doing the majority of their work by nosing, by actually just smelling those whiskeys and noticing the differences. I mean, I think if any master blender had been in the industry for 50 years and they were drinking whiskey repeatedly every single day, they probably wouldn't have lasted that long in their career. And so much of that work is done through the nose. Do you think that is something that people know in the day-to-day? Or do you think it's just people don't realize how much work their nose is doing?
I think it's something people totally don't know. Like, if you go to a really high-end coffee shop, they'll typically give you your coffee without the lid on it.
Yes.
Because they want you to smell the aroma. They've worked so hard to, you know, roast the beans, make the coffee, everything perfectly, so you have this aroma. The minute you put that lid on, you're losing about 75 to 80% of what we consider flavor.
Yeah.
And I think if people knew this and, like, you know, I'm on a personal campaign against the champagne flute because you can't smell anything, and champagne is expensive. You invested in this. You're missing out on the flavor. Exactly. I think if people were more aware of how much your nose helps you enjoy and remember the things you eat and drink, we wouldn't have things like lids and champagne flutes around.
I love that in your tagline of your book. One of them is, you know, we know how to eat, but we don't know how to taste. What are some of the kind of, I guess, key tips that naturally are in the book, but maybe one or two that you would say are key to a day-to-day experience? As you say, getting that morning coffee, having that first dram of whiskey. What are some of the key things, even just one or two, that you would be happy to share?
Yes, I think the number one thing is just slow down a little bit.
Okay.
I think also starting a routine. So you'll see if I'm ever out having a cocktail or having a whiskey, I always sniff first and then sip. Even if I'm not doing a professional tasting, it just becomes kind of part of your routine when you're eating and drinking. And just slowing down and taking 1 second to like get that whiff of aroma. Really just slows your thoughts down, makes you say, okay, here I am, I'm tasting something, I'm enjoying something. It's very easy, you know, like this, if we had coffee, we could be chatting the whole time and not thinking about it. But just that 1 second to take a sniff, I think is really important. And then another thing is I think people are scared to like call out tasting notes or to like quiz themselves. And I think it's really important to just go for it. I always say when you're tasting something, if it's a tea, if it's a whiskey, if all you can smell is whiskey, you can give yourself a prompt, right? And say, well, is this more wood or more floral? And you will be able to say at least that. This is more floral to me than wood or something. And you can kind of dig your way down to a tasting note. But I really think people shouldn't be afraid to just like throw it out there, whatever they're thinking. People get so nervous in these tastings, and I'm like, this is joyful work. Like everyone's going to taste something a little bit different. You don't have to be scared or feel like you won't look intelligent by just shouting out like croissant or something.
Absolutely. Or getting it wrong. And I think that's what's so fascinating. Like, so whenever I do whiskey tastings, I don't give people tasting notes in whiskey tastings in a group, in a room.
Love this.
Because then everybody's going to smell that. Because it's the power of suggestion. If you say this smells of raisins, people are going to smell it and they're going to go, cool, it smells raisins, because they put that image in their brain. Then their sensory, the olfactory senses are going to click into gear and they're going to go, right, I've picked up that raisin scent. And it was potentially there already, but they just hadn't maybe narrowed it down.
Right.
The problem is that actually maybe some people aren't smelling raisins, but now they're just telling themselves they're smelling raisins.
Right, and they're like, well, a dried apricot is close enough, and I thought it was apricot, but now it's raisin.
And I feel like I was wrong. I was going to say apricot, but now I feel, no, I got that wrong. So I try and just like let people do that. You said, you often do that in events or tastings or teaching people in your Instagram about little tidbits. Is that one of the things that you think is important?
Yes, when I teach workshops, I believe in the flavor wheel very deeply, where you're presenting them with tons of different ideas and saying, then, like I said, if they feel a little nervous, if they don't want to shout out, they can at least go around the wheel and sniff and think about, okay, do I smell this? Is there butterscotch here? Is there grass here? Is there hay? And kind of work with themselves to feel more confident. And like you said, we're so susceptible to prompting our senses. Even just putting like a red coaster under a drink, people will say it's sweeter. It's amazing what we can do. Even like one of the studies I talked about, they dyed some yogurt pink, no flavor. And they got people to believe that it was strawberry yogurt. And like there's no flavor there. It's amazing to me like how all 5 of our senses work together to create flavor and how easy it is to manipulate them.
I remember doing, I think it was Singleton a number of years ago. They worked with Dr. Charles Spence to design an activation specifically for that. So you would walk around to different rooms tasting the same whiskey, and they tasted wildly different in the different rooms. Absolutely. So there was a red room with lots of round things in it, and it 100% you was like, I'm smelling strawberry. Like, I was like, I'm getting sweet, I'm getting fruity, all of that.
Definitely.
When you think about tasting notes, you mentioned in the book that it doesn't have to be a snobby thing. It doesn't have to be an elitist thing. Do you think people have that association with, the nosing a glass and it's only for people who are specialists?
I think, and I also think people only really slow down and taste like that when they're having something expensive or something they feel like is a special moment. Where every morning your cup of coffee, you could be doing the same, or every time you go out and get ice cream or something. Like these are all really great things that are experiences you're having, and you could just take a minute to slow down. And I think people don't put tasting and kind of day-to-day activities together. They think it's like this special rarefied thing. And so I wish they wouldn't, because there's so many flavors out there for us.
And so many new things that maybe we've not discovered, or opportunities for new experiences.
Right.
I love that you talk about how this is what makes us human.
Yep.
Right. So this is currently, as it stands, we'll see how things develop, what things that separate us from AI, which is obviously growing very quickly, is this ability to have this direct connection with scent, with memory, with our appreciation for things in the day-to-day. Do you think that as technology increases, we'll move even, does that make you nervous? We'll move even further away from this ability to be human?
I mean, people are trying to, make these robot noses and things. But the thing that's amazing is like gas spectrometry. Am I saying this correctly? It's not as accurate as a human nose. Like they can get, show us the molecules, but it's the human tasters and the human testers that really can tell the difference and say, oh, this is like just over that threshold of sulfur where we can smell it. It can't go out on market. Whereas the robots or the technology they're not dialed in quite enough yet. And I think, again, like what makes us human, all of our genes are different. So like we're going through the world, I might have a gene that's turned off for something like a sulfur compound that I just don't smell it as strongly as you do. And so the way that we relate around things and our differences, I think, is also really interesting. I talk about in the book beta ionone, which is the smell of violets, that almost 2/3 of people just can't smell.
That's fascinating. I had no idea that many people can't smell violets.
Exactly. You can go through your whole life happy and you don't care. But if you can smell it, you love it. You love an aviation. You love the Parma violet candies. Like it's your favorite thing. And other people are like, oh, I don't understand why you don't like this. And I'm like, oh, it's just floral. It tastes like nothing that interesting to me. But if you have this gene, it's like lighting up your life. And so I think just thinking about, everyone, when you're at dinner, every single person is experiencing something a little bit different from their genes and their background as well. Which is a lovely thing to like connect over.
Sharing over what, I guess that's as well when tasting notes, as you say, it doesn't have to be so formal. It can be more just a sharing experience. You mentioned earlier you're one of only 100 Advanced Cicerones in the world. You've done a lot of studies, a lot of, you've got a lot of qualifications.
Yes, love a certification.
What's been one of the hardest? What's been the trickiest one, would you say?
Oh, great question. So I actually think sake was very hard. I took the sake WSET.
Yeah.
And I think just my palate was not, the nuances, especially those savory notes, are not something that we get a lot in the American palate.
Not at all.
So really tuning in, and I really, you practice so much. I have all these certifications. I think like I'm a taster, and like tasting between some different samples of sake, it really took me a lot to study. And I was like, wow, there's still things out here that, I can still be learning and still like tuning my palate and stuff. So I was really surprised about that one, because I actually love sake.
Yeah.
But then tasting them all next to each other and picking up on those little nuances, I really had to practice, get my study cap back on and stuff. So it's great to know that there's things out there still.
Amazing. When you look at, I was just thinking about a master blender that I worked with for quite a long time, and I once asked him, like, how do you keep doing the same job day in and day out? You must be bored.
Duh, I believe it.
And he was like, well, the thing is, I can still come into this sample room and I can still learn something new.
And be surprised.
Yeah. I can get a whiskey from a cask and I know exactly what I should be expecting. It should be on this trajectory. And I can still come into this room of a morning and be surprised.
Definitely. And this is the same with food pairing, I think, too.
Right, yeah.
I think that's another thing people put a little too much emphasis on, or they get too scared. They're like, what's the perfect wine for this meal?
Yeah.
And it could be a lot more fun than that, like it doesn't have to be. Pretty much, if you have a pretty good wine and some pretty good food, you're going to be okay. It's very rare that you have those real clashes.
Yeah.
But it is so wonderful when you've come across a real pairing that's like just sings, and you're like, wow.
Yeah.
I would not put these two things together, but here we are. So I think that kind of, I was thinking like pairing like whiskeys with barrels almost, when they do these different finishes. Sometimes they get totally surprised. Like, what happens when you put whiskey in a rum barrel? It's maybe not exactly what you're expecting. And same thing when you're pairing food. So
I love that. I always, at home, my husband and I always attempt to pair the perfect wine with food. We do it quite a lot. We love wine. And then actually, to be fair, we've just gotten to the stage where we just drink the wine before we've even managed to finish cooking dinner. So I realized, actually, should you just enjoy the wine, just enjoy the food.
Exactly. And like,
if you happen to have enough at the end, by the time you get to the dinner, pair away. But if not.
Exactly. And I always say, as long as one doesn't like totally overwhelm the other, you don't have a really intense wine with a really light dish or something, generally you're going to have a lovely time. So, exactly.
You talk a bit about, as well in the book, about super tasters. Now there's like a bit of a pedigree, a light shone over it. It's like, wow, you're a super taster. But that's not always a good thing, is it?
No, super tasters. So, again, this is not like something you're born like being very good at tasting or have a sharp palate. It's just that you really taste bitterness intensely. Yeah. You tend to have more taste buds if you're a super taster. But this is just one of those genes where there's actually 5 kinds of bitterness, and 3 of those kinds are tied to being a super taster.
Okay.
So basically, when you're young, you're super picky. It actually, something like a Brussels sprout will actually feel like physical pain to you when you're having this bitterness.
Fascinating.
So, don't yell at your kids too much. Maybe they're a super taster. But it tends to be the people who are in our industry, or people who are mixologists and chefs, are actually the non-tasters because they don't have this bitterness gene. Things are a little less complex to them. So they have to get creative and, build things with texture or color to make dishes more interesting to them. Yeah. Whereas a super taster, everything's already pretty intense. They're happy with their vanilla ice cream. It already has a lot of complexity to them. Someone who's a non-taster, they're getting creative, and those are the people who end up like really being stars in the industry. So it's really interesting.
Fascinating, because that's definitely not what I think you would think on a general.
No, and there's like YouTube videos where they're like, I'm a super taster and let me taste this for you, or let me break down this dish. And it's not going to help you do this at all. Yeah.
So, you're not winning.
Yeah.
Now, this is obviously a whiskey podcast. Our viewers love whiskey. They drink whiskey.
Yes.
Whiskey now comes from everywhere in the world.
Yes.
We're obviously from the States, but I know that doesn't mean that you only drink bourbon or only drink American whiskey. Do you like whiskey? Do you have a favorite whiskey? Do you drink more cocktails?
I love a cocktail, but I love whiskey. And I think, just like you said, I think something that's really amazing about whiskey is you can actually feel the weather and like the environment. And like, if you're doing a New Zealand whiskey aging, like your 3-year-old whiskey is going to taste much older than something that's aging in Scotland and stuff. So I think it's a really interesting way to kind of learn about the world as well. I love Compass Box. I don't know if you know them. Like they're some of the stuff that they're doing that's just super interesting, and I love that they show exactly the barrels they use. They like release that. I love like thinking about blending and finishes and stuff like that. So love a whiskey for sure. Nice. Lots to taste there.
Yeah, I was gonna say, from a tasting perspective, Yeah, there's a lot of complexity when it comes to whiskey, but obviously I think now after our conversation I might have to go drink some more sakes though, because I do love sake. I know what you mean though, because I remember being in a sake bar in, I think it was Osaka, and sitting there and just being like, I can't understand anything on this menu, but also I don't really have that knowledge, and the flavor wise, depending where you grew up in the world, your understanding of aroma is completely different than someone else's.
Totally.
You grew up with fruits in Southeast Asia versus fruits in North America. You got like apples and pears, and then you got mangosteens over here. You're just in a wildly different world.
And even like the same, if like for whiskey example, like cinnamon is, you know, an aroma. And if you're from South America, you will think cinnamon is, you know, savory. You think of it, or like India and things like this. Whereas in America, like this is apple cinnamon, like it's dessert always. Dessert. So like people who smell cinnamon, they'll be like, oh, this is sweet, while other people say savory, and you're like, how could this be so different? But it's just really in your background. And whiskey, you have the base ingredients, you have the barrels, you have the finishes. All of these come together in that aroma bouquet and flavor. There's so much to like pick apart, which I think is super interesting.
And just finally, if you had one thing you want people to know about the book, about how to taste, what would you want to share?
I think it's that no one is born a taster. Everyone can practice and get great at it. We actually can see when we look in our brains, 2 weeks of thoughtful smelling and tasting, your brain actually starts to, your olfactory bulb can grow visually, like where we can actually see it.
Amazing.
And then toward the end of the book, I talk about how people with those large olfactory bulbs were less likely to get COVID. They're less likely to have issues like dementia. So they're doing a lot of studies in this health. And like I said, what makes us human is a big part of what makes us human is what we can smell. And it's not surprising to me that having that part of the brain very, very healthy affects your overall health. So I think practicing it's fun, and it's only has positive outcomes. There's no bad thing about learning how to taste and being thoughtful about it.
Amazing. So get out there and smell everything.
Get out there and think about what you're smelling. When we walk out of here today, we can think about the room and what it smelled like. So
fascinating. Mandy, it's been such a pleasure to chat with you. As I said, I could talk to you for hours about aroma and taste, because it is an area I'm personally very passionate about, especially when it comes to whiskey and everything that comes along that side of it. Just finally, do you have a desert island dram?
Oh, desert island dram. I think it would be the Compass Box, the Orchard that they have. Yes, I think that's just top of mind now, but yes.
That's the one you would take with you.
Yeah, I think so. Or honestly, I hope my desert island has something where I can start making my own whiskey. Get the terroir there.
I love it. A tiny little, you can build your own little still.
Exactly, and have those flavors that are only on my own desert island. So there you go.
It sounds like a plan. Amazing. Mandy, thank you so much. You're obviously based in New York, but you're here in the UK for the podcast, so thanks so much for taking time out to come and chat with us today. And I look forward to going out and smelling things.
Yes, thanks for having me. This is great.